the service has any kind of noise-making device, any cell phone, if you could take a moment now to please turn them off or make sure that they're in the silent mode. And officiating our services today is Rabbi Lisa Bellows.
Hi, everyone. We are here today to say goodbye to and to celebrate the life of Ada Spanier. For her love that united us in life in which death cannot sever, for her companionship that we shared along life's path, which continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of her heart and mind that brought us joy and happiness and is now a precious remembrance. For all these and more, we give thanks. Ada was a person who, like her mother, seemed to know how to get the most from life. She chose optimism and to appreciate life, and she lived to the fullest. And so, while we are sad to say goodbye, we also have reason to celebrate a life well lived. So we celebrate Ada for her gifts and her talents, her life and her legacy. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death, to life everlasting. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we read that there's a time for every purpose. There's a time to keep silent, and there's a time to speak. To share words from their hearts, I'll invite up in this order, but you'll come up either one or two at a time as you wish. Ada's granddaughter, Lauren and Chris, grandson Tom and Sandra, and daughter-in-law Sheila, and favorite son Harris.
Hi, everybody. Anyone who was lucky enough to know my grandma knows that she loved to talk. I don't know if I think I need to take a minute.
So as I reflect on Ada's wonderful life that she lived, her way, a few things come to mind and will always have a special place in my heart that I'd like to share. Last night, as I was jotting notes of what I was going to say today, I was sitting in the living room where our ketubah hangs from mine and Lauren's special wedding back in April of 2016. As I look at it, I see Ada's signature as a witness. Instantly, the memory of her telling me prior to signing it, "Take care of my baby. She's my baby girl, and I love her so much." The reason this is so special and significant is because our family was her everything. Things she always said were, Harris was her son and best friend. Sheila was the best daughter-in-law to her and a great wife to her son Harris. She was proud of Tom and Sandra and Lauren for the people they've become and the people they are today. And Ada loved our boys, Braden and Ryan. She especially enjoyed reading books to them on our visits to her at Montgomery Place. One very special memory I have with Ada and common interest that I enjoy talking to her about, which I will always remember her by and keep close to my heart, is the game of golf. Yep. A few years back, I went golfing with some friends at Jackson Park in the Hyde Park area near Montgomery Place. Once I realized where I was, I decided to make an unexpected visit to Ada just to say hi and see how she was doing. Well, that 15-minute interaction ended up being an hour or more, but it was enjoyable. One of the interesting things she told me during that conversation was that she golfed when her and Lee lived in Ohio. She would golf after work one day during the week with Lee, and then other days she played in a women's evening league. The most interesting thing out of all of this was that she self-taught herself how to swing a golf club and learned the game of golf through a book she bought. Not only was this an enjoyable visit for both of us, this will be a memory I will never forget and have a special place in my heart, especially when I'm on a golf course. I'll be thinking of you, Ada. So Ada, as we say goodbye to you today, I love you and appreciate the love, joy, happiness and support you have given to me and Lauren. You've lived a great 99 years your way, and I will always be thinking of you.
Try this one more time. Anyone who was lucky enough to know my grandma knows how much, what? Anyone who was lucky enough to know my grandma knows how much she loved to talk. She talked a lot about herself and her life over the last 99 years, but also always asked about my family. No matter what was going on with her, she always wanted to make sure the kids and I and Chris were okay. There are so many memories about my grandma that it's hard to narrow them down. Our trips to California and spending time with so many of their friends, walking around Berkeley with Ada and Lee, going to their favorite little restaurants, and taking trips to San Francisco with them, and just driving to San Francisco with them was always a memory. Going to Habitat and Grandma showing me the place that she loved and where she fit right in, even though she was the oldest one there. Over the last 7 years, I was lucky enough to get to know my grandma in an even closer way. She and I talked a lot about being moms. She talked about my dad when he was younger, and she always made it sound so easy. She definitely didn't have it easy, especially before she met Lee, but she was always so positive about all of it. We would have our weekly phone calls on my way home from work where we would talk, and I often had to cut her off and say, "Grandma, I have to go, I'm in the garage." That happened a lot. She would talk about things that happened years and years ago, and she would never get tired of those same stories. She was one of a kind, the most open-minded 99-year-old you'll ever meet. She loved my family. She would always talk about how lucky I was to have my mom and what an amazing and beautiful woman she was. She said that a lot. She talked about my dad and how good of a person that he turned out to be, and how she couldn't believe she had a son so old. She would refer to Chris as my nice husband, and she adored our kids. I'm so grateful that Ada and Lee moved here when they did, and that my grandma got to know the boys, and that they got to know their Gigi. I know we'll keep my grandma's memories alive through pictures and stories about her. I see a lot of her in my dad. In a way, my dad has the same positive spirit that my grandma had. Whenever I talked to my grandma on the phone, she would always reassure me that she's okay. No matter if she was okay or not, she didn't want us to worry. I'm grateful for the life that she lived and that I had her for so long as my grandma. Love you, Grandma.
Thank you. I'm Tom. I'm Ada's grandson. Ada was an extraordinary grandmother who was one of the most open-minded people I have ever known. She was ahead of her time and accepted people for who they were. She never judged anyone, was supportive, and made you feel comfortable no matter who you were. She was tough and kind and knew when it was time to fight for something you believe in and when it was time to let something go because it was not important. Ada was a creative person, and I believe she is where I got it from. She ran a successful craft business for 15 years with her husband Lee, making and selling custom light switch plates. She enjoyed reading poetry and knitting while listening to Lee reading books out loud. I will always remember how much energy she had all the time. I remember her birthday parties in Berkeley, where so many people came. She had friends of every age bracket, and people naturally gravitated towards her. She liked to party a lot. She never seemed to get tired and loved to talk. I remember back in 2000, after I graduated from college, I visited Ada and Lee for 2 weeks in Berkeley. We talked every evening after dinner. This one time, it was around 9 o'clock at night. She was doing most of the talking as usual. And she did not stop talking for 2.5 hours until I told her I had to go to bed. She would have kept going had I not stopped her. This happened almost every night of my 2-week trip there. I really got to know her a lot. This happened almost every night, by the way, in the trip, and I really got to know her. Ada treated people with kindness and respect no matter who they were. She worked with seniors and children at the Habitat Company in Berkeley and loved being around people and helping them. She was always busy and liked to do things that mattered or helping other people. She liked to knit and for many years made hats and gloves for children in need. She did this up until the end of her life, knitting hats and sending them to Alaska for children. She was famous too, in case you did not know. She was recently on the cover page of the Tribune newspaper for Christmas 2019 for the work she did knitting hats for children and sending them to Alaska. Ada and Lee were also in a book called Living Happily Ever After in 1996 about her fantastic relationship with Lee. Ada, to me, was a life coach, an artist, an entrepreneur, and had an addictive personality who was always the center of attention. I will always remember her. I'll always love her. She was one of a kind and a true original.
My name is Sandra Spanier. I am Ada's grandson, Tom Spanier's wife. I'm grateful to have known Ada since I met her 15 years ago. She was kind, loving life, energetic, outspoken, positive, valuing her time, feeling grateful for her long life, and proud of her family. I always felt welcome in her company and was comforted by her kind words, shared excitement, and encouragement. Ada was always involved in various projects, from knitting and donating children's hats to most recently volunteering for medical students training in seniors care, which made her an interesting and noteworthy person to many. But most impressive thing about Ada to me will always be her ability to notice the seemingly smallest pleasant things in life and highlight them to such importance worth celebrating. In those moments, I couldn't help but feeling happy for her and with her. Ada used to say that life is an adventure, and she lived a century-long, rich and colorful life, discovering opportunities for joy wherever she could find them. She experienced great losses, wonderful advances, and delightful everyday encounters in her own way, true, authentic Ada style. And I loved her for that.
Hello, I'm Sheila Spanier, Ada's daughter-in-law. And when I first met Ada and Lee, when Harris and I were engaged, we went to Sandusky, Ohio, where they lived at the time. I was surprised to find out that Harris called his mother and father by their first names, Ada and Lee. I had never heard of a child addressing their parents by their first names instead of mom and dad. It took me a couple of years to muster up the courage to call them by their first names. I did not call them anything, but waited until they looked my way to address them. A few years later, when I felt more comfortable, I asked Ada why Harris called her Ada instead of Mom. She simply said, "Because that's my name." That was Ada. Ada, as you know, was full of life, happy, confident, independent, creative, one of a kind, and always had a twinkle in her eye. She was content with her life and the simple pleasures. I never heard her say, "I wish I had done that," or "I wish I had that." She always had an interesting story to tell and enjoyed talking about her past. Like everyone, Ada went through some sad and scary times, but she moved on and never looked back. She made lemonade out of lemons. As she got older, her favorite line was, "Aren't I the luckiest old lady?" She must have repeated that 1,000 times. Every time we talked with her, she would say that. She was happy and content, and she loved her family very much. Ada derived so much pleasure from seeing her grandchildren and their spouses and watching her two adorable great-grandsons grow up, Braden 7 and Ryan 4. Ada and Lee moved from California 8 years ago, the first time in 40 years that they were living near us. Unfortunately, Lee passed away a year later, but Ada was here to see the births of both of her great-grandsons. She was bursting with pride. I could not have asked for a better mother-in-law. She often said to me, "Isn't it wonderful that we never argue or that we've never said a cross word to each other?" We respected each other. She was kind, understanding, and non-judgmental, easy to talk with and to confide in, and was appreciative of anything we did for her. She was a good listener, but also a good talker, as you've heard from our children. I found it very difficult to get off the phone with her. because she always had one more thing to say, one more thing to tell me. I will miss those interesting conversations. And how many people end up on the front page of the Tribune, especially at 99 years of age? But Ada did. She was a remarkable lady and ahead of her time, and I am honored to be a big part of her life. She may have left our life, but will always be in our hearts. I found a poem that reminded me of Ada, and I would like to read it to you. It's called I'm Free. Don't grieve for me, for now I'm free. I'm following the path God laid for me. I took his hand when I heard him call. I turned my back and left it all. I could not stay another day to laugh, to love, to work or play. Task left undone must stay that way. I found that peace at close of day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Ah, yes, these things too I shall miss. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life's been full, I've savored much. Good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it now with undue grief. Lift up your hearts and share with me. God wanted me now, he set me free. I am imagining right now that Ada and Lee are together again. And Lee is reading to Ada, and Ada is doing her knitting. We love you and miss you, Ada Potato, which is what she used to call herself.
I like to think of her as having 99 1/2 amazing years. She was really active until the last 3 months ago. And everything she did her way. And she had fun. If we heard another one say, heard her say, everyone says I look so nice. Everyone looks like I dress so beautifully. Finally, her boyfriend, which she had, who died about 3 months ago, said to her, "Don't say that anymore." Everyone's sick of hearing it. It stopped her to some degree. She loved to garden, and she was very, very good at it. The gardens in the different places we lived always were flourishing, flourishing. And she thinks I'm the perfect son. Imagine that, Tom and Sandra, Lauren and Chris. Honey, the perfect person. And the thing I found amazing was she never complained. She never complained. The only thing she wasn't real thrilled about was the food at the Montgomery place. But she never complained about it, really. She just said, oh, well, I'll have another meal. And talk about hard to get off the phone. My wife owes me years of her life for me getting her off the phone. I would say, tell Ada I want to talk to her. I say, I get her on the phone and say, hey, we gotta go, take care. And she'd say, goodbye. You could never do that. She would never allow that. Let's see. I thought it was amazing that she had those articles in the paper. I mean, she had 4 articles in the paper. They were in a book. How many of us, no matter how perfect we think we are, I'll be in the Super O book, but she was in the real world in books. Amazing. She never pursued it. Other people always, I don't know, they must have told her about this woman I know. Let's see. That book that you mentioned. That was maybe 15, 20 years ago? 96? Amazing. The Hats for Kids. And she got these ideas. She would say, I had a dream last night. She'd have a dream, and one said she would get books and give them to kids. So what did she do? She found a place to get pretty near free books. She bought them. She gave them to kids. I mean, she had a dream where she wanted to decorate the house. So she thought about a cheap way to do it, because she was thrifty, no doubt about it. She didn't want to spend a lot of money. So she took crepe paper, cut it into maybe 1-inch strips, and stretched it, and made gorgeous curtains. We had curtains for years and years made out of crepe paper. It was really good looking. I'd never seen anything like that. The switch plates, she used to tell me, they did that for, I don't know, how long, 15 years? And, it's just a regular little switch plate. And I could never imagine Lee as a salesperson. But they would go to these county fairs and things like that, and they sold a lot of them. Many thousands of dollars worth. She loved her family, and it was all of our goals, every one of us, to make sure she had a good time in Chicago. And she really did have a good time in Chicago. She didn't allow herself to slip into any morass. I thought it was interesting as she got older, she didn't have what I would call a huge amount of good friends. Like no one does, But she had one woman, Elizabeth, who she was very close with, who died. She had another friend, Muriel. And when she was in her, I don't know, how old was she when she met Chuck? She had a boyfriend. He was her boyfriend. How many 99-year-old women? And he was like 15 years younger than she was. He was a good guy. We liked him. Very unusual. Oh, and in closing, I would like to say, we got the birth certificates. We went through all our papers. And both to Sheila and my surprise, we found out her name is Yetta, not Ada. Where the name Ada came from, we have no idea. But it's my mother, Ada. Is there anyone who'd like to say anything else? This is your chance. Good, that we don't have to listen to you. Thank you.
Kindness, non-judgmental, my way, fiercely independent. Didn't let much stop her. and she chose to look on the bright side. She made the most of what she had, and she felt that she was a very rich woman. Nice place to live, a few friends, and she was rich because she had you, her family. She brought a lot of love into this world. Any one of those qualities of kindness, of non-judgmental, of take it or leave it, this is who I am, of choosing good, any one of those, the world would be better. We would be better. But to be with someone and love someone who had all of those is truly remarkable and cause for deep gratitude, which you have. And so that is all of those qualities, that is her legacy. Each time you are able to do for each other or have a dream that involves doing for someone or using your own gifts and talents, so she lives in the way she can through you, and the world is better. Each time you're able to help someone because you show them kindness, so the world is better. Ada didn't have a perfect life, but she had a great life because you were in it. She was a righteous woman. May her name and her memory be for us and all the world a blessing. We say together, Amen. The last of what we'll offer at this time is a prayer that we call the Mourner's Kaddish. You have it on the backside of the leaflet. It's a prayer we say at times of grief, but it doesn't have any word that mentions death, and it's not about death. It causes us to be grateful. It is about gratitude for having our loved one, Ada, in our life, for she made the world and our lives so much better, so much more beautiful. And for that we are grateful. If you are able, we'll stand for Mourner's Kaddish, and we can say it together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divra chirutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olomei omaya. Yitparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shmei d'kudisha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushvachata v'nechamata damiran b'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort all of us who are bereaved, and we say together, Amen.
can be seated. This does conclude our services today. For those of you who are watching via the live stream, we are going to end the stream at this time. And I'll ask the family members, if you'd like, we'll escort you back into the family room.